Hi YouTubers, and I'm back for another YouTube video of what would have happened if this were in real life RhinoTMRT gameplay series. Now, I've been delayed over and over and over again. Well, technically I haven't been delayed by all means necessary for that. I've been a little bit delayed by it all, and yeah, I guess it just felt very obvious. Now, I'm planning to make this YouTube video on 11 minutes long, so yeah, I guess that kind of does make sense. I mean, I'm still, very great and all, so yeah, I just assumed that that would all happen, so yeah. And yeah, so I guess everything is all fine, so yeah, I guess that kind of just makes sense. So, yeah, anyways, this is what would have happened if the Rise of the Guardians 2 movie were in real life. Now, we come into the beginning where Jack Frost is already enjoying his life. Like, now that Jack Frost and all the other gang, the people behind him, the people who worked with him to get rid of the villain of the first movie, everything is so great and all, and it even shows it, and it even kind of does go out on a good note. Jack Frost is basically enjoying his life in the mountains, and everybody else is already enjoying their lives in their place. However, meanwhile, the Santa Claus from the first Rise of the Guardians movie actually comes in and tells them that the main villain from the first movie actually has a son who's the junior version of himself. So the main villain of the first Rise of the Guardians movie actually now in the second movie has a son now. You can think of him sort of like his Bowser. You can think of him as like his Bowser Jr. So you can kind of think of it like that, but we'll get all those details later. So Jack Frost and all the other people in the Rise of the Guardians first movie, they go to the last known location of where I forgot the villain's name for I forgot the villain's name for the first Rise of the Guardians movie. So yeah, I kind of forgot about that, and yeah, so I guess it kind of does make sense. And yes, it kind of does make sense for me to do this because Christmas Round TMRT Gameplay Week is coming next week, so yeah, I just wanted it to be like that. So yeah, because Christmas Round TMRT Gameplay Week is coming next week, so I figured I would get ready by doing this one. So Jack Frost and Santa Claus and all the other characters from the Rise of the Guardians, they all go check on this new person who just so happens to be the son of the main villain of the first movie. Now, main villain of the first Rise of the Guardians movie. Now, yes, I know that I mentioned before that I don't know his name. If you know, then you can comment. If you know, then you can comment down below what the villain's name was. I just forgot. I literally forgot the villain's name from Rise of the Guardians. It's been a long time. So yeah, I guess that kind of just makes sense. So yeah, they come back, and it just so happens that the main villain of the first movie's son actually instead of him planning to easily take away the minds of other children, he decides to do the exact opposite. Instead, he does something that he does something a little bit different. So on his point of view, he actually does something a little bit different. Instead he makes fake clones of himself to make Jack Frost and Santa Claus and the other characters from the Rise of the Guardians first movie, to make them be distracted you know, the clones of the main villain from the first Rise of the Guardians movie, that the son of him. So yeah, that kind of does make sense. So he makes clones to them, and it just so happens that he has a new plan in order to take away the children's minds. So his plan is to actually, instead of taking away them, he instead finds a way to control them. So you remember in how the main villain of the Rise of the Guardians movie, he wanted to like ruin the dreams of he wanted to like ruin the dreams of the young kids from the Rise of the Guardians movie. Well, his son actually does the exact opposite. Instead he instead what he does is that he basically tries and finds a way to control their minds rather than to control their minds and make it just like his, which is kind of the different idea. So the different ideas is that the main villain's son from this movie, but the main from the main which the main villain of the which is from the main villain of the Rise of the Guardians 1. He just so happens to try and find ways to control the mind. He starts off with one of the character he starts off with one of the other characters that Jack Frost has befriended. One of the other characters of the guy that finally talked to. He of course his friends. So you know that kid from the beginning of you know that kid from the from that you know that kid who had with a few couple of friends in the Rise of the Guardians. Well, his friends are actually the first. Well, his friends are actually his friends his friends cousins and his cousin's friends are all under the control of the main villain's son are all in control of the main villain from the Rise of Guardians 1 movie, his son from the first movie. So technically, the main villain's son would the main villain from the main villains from the main villain from the main villain from the Rise of Guardians' son actually controls most of them, and then basically it ends out on a perfectly good note. Meanwhile, Jack Frost and Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, all the Sandy, and all the other characters, they all come up with a battle plan to stop this main villain from the Rise of the Guardians 1 movie son in to save the children from being controlled by him. So it's sort of going to be somewhat of that, and it's actually a perfectly good storyline because you see the main villain from because remember the main villain from the Rise of the Guardians 1, he wanted to like destroy the dreams of the children. If you remember that. Here in the second movie, his son that he actually created doesn't intend on stealing the dream on getting rid of the dreams of the children, but instead only focuses on like controlling the minds of the children. So he's technically sort of like something like sort of like a you can think of him as like an evil artificial intelligence or something, which kind of just makes sense. So the Jack Frost and the Santa Claus and all the other people, they all have one big fighting battle scene, probably even way larger than the one from the first movie, which I guess is actually being very clear about everything. And to be fair, this fighting battle scene for the Rise of the Guardians 2 will actually be very big, like super big. But then it just so happens that one of the friend that befriended the person that Jack Frost befriended from the first movie. He eventually, but then it just so happens that he eventually dies, and then Jack Frost says no, and then he basically and then they basically send the main villain from the Rise of the Guardians 1 movie, son, to some sort of like prison or dungeon. I don't know. Anyways, they all enjoy their lives again, and it just makes sense. And then Jack Frost tells Santa Claus that he realizes that he can't save every children. So it's kind of gonna be like that, just like how every superhero can't save alive people. That's just how it's going to be. So then eventually smile right through the snowy area, and then everything is all, and then they all have a perfectly good happy ending. The end, and then the credits roll, and then we get a post credit scene involving the main villain from the Rise of the Guardians 1 movie. Actually is in the post credit scene where he says, "My son has failed, but you will not fail, my daughter." And then he gives out an evil, and then cut to black, he gives out an evil laugh. And anyways, that was my take on what would have happened if the Rise of the Guardians 1 movie were in real life. Now, I kind of wanted to do this, because Christmas RhinoTMRT Gameplay Week is coming up, and I figured I would do all this because, hey, it's a perfectly good storyline, and at least it's something new. There's a new villain in here, there's a new storyline, one of the characters dies, which